Morning, folks. I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School, and I'm back down here at the Pathfinder Outdoor Classroom at the school here in Southeast Ohio. Today, I have a very special announcement. I have been working with Morakniv in Sweden for a little over 10 years, or right at 10 years, and I did a video on the Garberg when it was first released, and that video has since gotten somewhere close to or around 1 million views. And it is still, to this day, a bulletproof design for a survival and bushcraft knife. And I'm a firm believer in the Garberg for that purpose. Now, after the Garberg came out and we used it for a couple years, one of the things that I had requested of Mora, or had tried to talk them into creating, is a 5-inch version of that Garberg, because if you've watched my videos for a long period of time, you know that I recommend a 5-inch blade, and there's a reason for that. It's not just an arbitrary number. The reason for the 5-inch blade is that I believe in a survival scenario under normal conditions. I don't mean extreme cold weather conditions necessarily. I'm talking about under normal conditions here in the eastern woodlands, that a 4-inch diameter log or tree is the biggest thing you should really need to process in some way to affect your survival. A 4-inch green tree is structural. A 4-inch log that's dead, that can be split down, is plenty capable of giving you extended firewood and high BTUs depending on the species of tree that it is. So 4 inches is really the maximum I think you need to baton. And if you are using your knife to baton that because you don't have an axe for some reason, then if you have a 4-inch tree and a 4-inch blade, you don't have very much hanging out the other end once you baton that knife down into the wood. If you have that extra inch of blade, it gives you something to bang on with a baton or a stick to split that wood the rest of the way out. That's the main reason for the 5-inch blade, okay? So today, I'm here to announce the new Garberg Grand, which is a 5-inch Garberg style blade called the Mora Grand. This one has a brown handle at my request. It has a brown leather sheath at my request. The leather sheath has an insert inside of it that's made out of an ABS material, so that there's no way that you can shove this knife in and push it through the sheath, because there's a protector inside, all right? Other than that, the specs, other than length and weight, are going to be very similar to any other Garberg that you have had, except this one is 5 inches long. Now, let's talk about the progression of this knife a little bit. You can see the drop point on this knife on the profile. You can also see right here on the blade, it says prototype #1, Dave Canterbury, okay? This is the very first production prototype. What I have in this box are the prototypes leading up to the final design, okay? And these were sent to me for inspection, for testing, for use, to decide what profile I thought was going to be the best profile. And if you look at these knives, you can see that there's different slopes on that drop point, okay? And there's a slight variation in the length of the blade, but not much. But there's a difference in the geometry of those blades from a drop point standpoint, all right? You can see this one's a little bit more shallow, this one's a little bit deeper, and this one's back a little further, okay? So you have 3 different designs there that were looked at to come up with the final design. And all of these were stainless steel, had black handles. Again, they were mainly prototypes for deciding on geometry more than anything else. They did come with a brown sheath, but the final version has the brown handle on it and the brown sheath. And it is what I would consider the perfect survival and bushcraft style knife. Now, you may think that 5 inches is a little bit long for a bushcraft knife if you're used to working with a 4-inch blade or something about the size of your palm. This is gonna be about 1 inch longer than that, okay? But you can still choke up on this thing all the way to the tip, keeping your hands off the blade and onto the handle itself, and use it for finer tasks like skinning and things like that around camp. It's thin enough that you can process meat and game with it very, very easily. And it's got that extra length that I think is important to make it a good all-around survival and bushcraft style knife, okay? So let's beat this thing up a little bit, show you kind of how it works. I don't think you're gonna see anything much different than the first original Garberg other than the length, but the length is the most important improvement to this knife in my opinion, along with, I really like the fact that it's got a brown handle and a brown leather sheath, okay? That, to me, makes this knife look very traditional in nature, and that's what I like, okay? Whereas I think the black Garberg had a more tactical look to it because of the black sheath, black handle. Recently came out with an OD handle, which I liked really, really well. But the brown handle, I think, really is the ticket for guys that are, you know, woodsmen, that love stuff that looks natural in the woods. I think this brown handle, brown sheath are perfect for that, okay? All right, guys, so that just shows you pretty heavy duty blade right here. I have no problems at all beating on the blade, beating on the handle, beating on the butt into this thing, forcing it through pieces of hardwood. I have no problem with that at all, okay? But you can see why the 4-inch is important in that clip where I was splitting that heavy piece of hardwood, okay? Now, the obvious question is gonna be, when's it gonna release? When can I buy it? How much is it gonna cost me, okay? Remember, these prices are dictated by Mora. They have nothing to do with SRO or Dave Canterbury. These are Mora prices, okay? The carbon version of the Garberg, the carbon version is $179.99 with the leather sheath in the box, okay? The stainless steel version is $169.99. These will be available tomorrow morning at noon. That's Eastern Standard Time, noon Eastern Standard Time. What I will tell you is this: I have the only 200 of these available in the U.S. The only 200 available in the U.S. I have in my warehouse. They are not going to be available anywhere else for at least 3 weeks to a month, and they will not be any cheaper than this. This is the MSRP by Mora at this point, okay? Now, will the price go down over time like it did with the Garberg? Possibly in a year, it may go down, okay? But if you are a Mora fan and you understand Mora knives and you've used Mora knives, you realize that this is an heirloom quality knife. You're never going to hurt this thing. I still have my original Garberg that said prototype number 1, Dave Canterbury on it from 10 years ago. And that thing has been beat and beat and beat and beat. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that knife to this day, all right? So an heirloom quality knife under 200 bucks with a nice leather sheath that has an insert to keep you from hurting the sheath when you're pushing it in or pulling it out. I think that is a more than fair price if you look at the price of knives on the market today. No question about it. This thing is high carbon steel in the carbon version. It throws sparks with a rock. It absolutely destroys a ferro rod up with a 90-degree spine. It's great for shaving wood, using it as a spoke shave to process tinder. And it's just an all-around great knife. I'm glad that Mora finally came out with the 5-inch Garberg. Again, this has basically been my dream knife from Morakniv, a full tang 5-inch blade. This Mora Grand is definitely it. And again, available only at selfrelianceoutfitters.com tomorrow at noon. Available only at selfrelianceoutfitters.com tomorrow, the 24th, at noon until we run out. Guys, now as I said, Self-Reliance Outfitters will be the first to have these in the United States, period, for sale. However, we're not allowed to ship them until October the 1st. So we're pre-selling them now, as of tomorrow, the 24th of September, but they cannot ship per Mora's directive until October the 1st, okay? Even on October the 1st, nobody else is gonna have these knives but Self-Reliance Outfitters. However, with pre-orders opening tomorrow, I probably won't have any left by October 1st, and I'll be trying to order more if I can get them. All right? Listen, I appreciate you joining for this video. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, and for our business, for all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends. And I'll be back with another video as soon as I can, guys. Thanks.